Okay, take two. We're rolling. Jessica, thanks for coming back.
No problem.
We did this in February and my voice didn't withstand the time,
That's all right.
but we're back. So, Dino Daycare, Dino Drop-In.
No,
What?
no Dino daycare. We don't take care of days.
Just Dino Drop-In and
Dino Drop-In, ABC Dino Academy, and Explore Montessori in Academy.
okay, start with whichever one you want to talk about first.
Okay. Well, now since our last meeting, we've had our 10-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Um, Dino Drop-In started in 2016. I was on a sledding hill. I had just left the food industry and thought I was going to stay home with my kiddos. I had two at the time. And we were going out sledding, and I knew I was not cut out to stay home. My brain was very busy, and I had a whiteboard for my son and, checking off the boxes like I had for so many years in work. And so we were going sledding, my husband and I, and a bunch of moms and their kids. And this woman approached me and said, "Hey, my family wants to help me start a business. They have funding to do so, and I need to find someone who likes business." And my husband said, "Well, no one does more than my wife," because I had always kind of been in this startup mindset. So that was right before Christmas, or during Christmas break. We went on a long trip, and I kind of ran the numbers for the two different ideas that she had and came up with Dino Drop-In. We had a very aggressive timeline, so we got our lease signed probably in January with a tentative start date of March 1st opening. So we refinished the building, changed out everything in the building. It was a workout place previous to us. Got the logo done, the website done, all of the marketing done, and opened on March 1st, 2016.
So that's like 2 months. And
Yeah.
is that where you guys are now on off of Main, or that was somewhere
No.
else?
Uh, that was over in Stone Ridge. So
Okay.
I have a facility across the street from my original location that is Explore Academy or
Hmm.
Explore Montessori. But Dino Drop-In has moved over to Bozeman High.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's like right off Huffine there.
Yep. Huffine right across from Starbucks, right in the
Yeah.
high school. We have our separate entrance and everything, separate facility from the high school, but it's attached.
Is that concept, did you or this woman come up with that concept? Has that been around the drop-in model like that?
So there were a couple of drop-in models that have since closed in the interim. But there was a drop-in in Bozeman out at Four Corners at that time that had introduced me to it. And then also Billings, Montana had some that my children had used when we were on a trip once. Um, so it wasn't a totally unique concept, but the ones that we had visited or we used when we did the research were very low quality, like a TV on all the time, very overstimulating. The children would go, like my children, who I brought to try it out and see what the drop-in process was like and if they liked it. They initially liked it, and then they would be in tears because of the overstimulation. Like, it was like the McDonald's playland and a TV on at all times, fluorescent walls. They think they're going to like it, and then it's not good for their nervous system. So they
Yeah,
end up
that's
not liking it. So my goal with Dino Drop-In was to create something more like home. So soft couches, kind of cream-colored walls, just something that was appealing in different ways to children. When they walk in the door, they're greeted. We're excited to see them. We know who they are, helping them to feel like this is their space away from home, uniquely designed specifically for them.
Is there people there that their kids are coming daily, or is it just a pretty infrequent here and there drop-in thing?
So when I started, I thought we need a name tag printer because you only get one shot when a child doesn't talk. If you don't learn their name when they get dropped off, you won't know their name all day.
Hmm.
And that's important to me. I value that child and their unique personality. So addressing them with their name is important. And I thought I have to have a backup plan. Most of the children attend. Once they attend once, they want to come back. Their parents like the convenience. They love it. And so they're coming back daily. I've had some families who've been coming for years. Like their first child came lots of times periodically. And then the next baby came and we started caring for them. And the big kid went off to kindergarten. They might just visit when school's out or just attend once in a while. But there's many families in town that have been coming for multiple children. So not the whole decade, but most of it.
Yeah. Is there a minimum amount of time they can come?
1 hour once in their lifetime.
Okay. so they can right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you just have a quick errand to run or something, that's
Sure. I mean, that rarely happens.
yeah.
We get tourists that come in who want to maybe go mountain biking or skiing. Some of the ski hills have facilities on site. Lots of times those get full, or maybe they don't have a facility. Bridger Bowl no longer has a childcare on site. So they'll drop their children off while they're on ski vacations because maybe the baby is not able yet to even do ski school. Or maybe the 3-year-old likes skiing the first day and then turns into a noodle and needs somewhere else to go. So mom and dad can hit the slopes.
Hi, folks. Quick note from me. If you don't already know, the goal of Mountain Mule is to build real connection between Montana's businesses and the people they serve. We provide private transportation services and Yellowstone National Park tours. If this episode or any other has given you something worth thinking about, smiling at, passing along, I've got a small ask. Share it with a friend, text it to someone, consider following the show. Whether you're using our services directly or following and sharing the show, those simple actions help support this business as well as the businesses and guests that have been a part of the show. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses, local jobs, and this beautiful state. Now back to the show. Can be going out all day.
Right. Even fishing adventures, I mean, they might like it for the day, but if you're here for a week trying to do a lot of these outdoor things your kids are not used to, or they are not able to get a nap midday and they're in need of that nap, I mean, we can make their day as much like it would normally be as possible.
What are the hours for the drop-in?
7:15 a.m. till 8 p.m.
That's pretty.
That's a
Yeah,
pretty long day.
yeah. I mean, I was thinking even if somebody wanted to run to the gym, so you do 2 hours.
Oh, absolutely. Or
Yeah,
go out to dinner. I mean,
oh, especially with the 8. You said 8 p.m.
yes.
Yeah, so yeah, you could do
Yeah, you
a
can.
date night, dinner night. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'd guess since so much more work has become remote in the last, 15 years, is that where this model kind of emerged? Or is it?
A little bit with the gig work. I mean, we serve quite a few families, so I didn't realize this till I had Dino, but nurses and firefighters or nurses and first responders are often married, just uniquely. And so nurses have strange schedules, firefighters have strange schedules. So they might only need 3 days a month because the firefighters are on these 48-hour rounds and the nurses are on all kinds of different schedules. Um, so then they would rather just have their children come those 3 days a month instead of a traditional preschool where they come 8 to 5 or 8 to 3 every day. That doesn't fit their needs at all. But we can provide the preschool educational aspects. We can provide the nurturing environment, the excitement of going and making friends and having peers, the things you can't learn at home. That are easy to teach in preschool are sharing and you're never going to ask your child to stand in a line and wait for the bathroom
Yeah.
at home. You're just going to get out of the way. So some of those things, that the ability to set aside immediate gratification in a child, that is something important for them before they go to kindergarten. And we can teach that in any time of day. It doesn't matter if it's between 8 and 3.
What is the age cutoff?
So at Dino Drop-In, we take 6 weeks all the way up to 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
So in the evenings, we do get some older children. Maybe mom and dad might be going to school and have night classes or need study hours in the evening. They might be going on date nights. It just depends on the situation.
If somebody needs full-time daycare, do you direct them somewhere else? Or is there a time when they're saying, we're going to bring our kids to Dino Drop-In 5 days a week? I'd imagine that probably is not the most affordable way to do it.
It wouldn't be the most affordable way to
Yeah.
do it for sure. What we did, how many years ago? In 2021, I believe, or 2022 here. Our first ABC Dino Academy was actually in Washington State. I had Dino Drop-ins there too until I sold them last year. So we developed a sister school called ABC Dino Academy. And in Bozeman, they're co-located in Bozeman High. So Dino Drop-In is the front door of the building. And then we have classrooms all the way back through the building that offer full-time care at affordable rates.
Okay.
Not, I mean, if you can call childcare ever affordable, it's
Yeah.
in line with rates that we need to charge to be able to pay our teachers well.
Yeah. I hired a woman. I think she started in like January or February, and she's got a 3-year-old, and she answers our phone and does most of our customer service. And just the fact that I could give one person a job she can then stay with her kid. Once in a while, when she comes in here to the office, she brings
Sure.
him in, and it's so much fun. But it's a very real thing. Is
It definitely is.
the
My first son, I worked at a company in town called Wayfair, and we were a food company.
okay?
And I brought him with me every day of his life until I left after baby number 2 came. I couldn't bring 2 babies to work. Um, but he would go to the plant and he would be in my office and he would come to business meetings. And it works really well until it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I have a lot of parents who have a 9-month-old at home. I think 9 months is kind of like the sweet spot where it happens, or right around there, where all of a sudden the parents start to get overwhelmed and the child starts moving. They start knowing what they want more and having opinions about what's happening in the day versus a tiny little baby doesn't, they sleep so much. Um, and you really want them to be getting the enrichment that we can provide in a preschool. So they're in a room that is built specifically for them. All of the things they can touch and put in their mouth. And we have different textures everywhere. Just all of the different sensory inputs that they're looking for. Um, that's not necessarily as functional in a house. Even my children, we do messy art at school still.
How how old was the you said it was your son that you took to work with you?
My oldest was 4 when I opened
Okay.
Dino.
No, but you said you were taking him to Wayfair before
Mhm.
then.
Yes.
Does he remember any of that or no?
No, he was tiny.
Yeah.
He came to food shows all over the US though. So he went to Chicago, LA, Washington, DC, Seattle, Portland, all before he was 2 years old.
So you were just traveling with him.
I was traveling with him and I would have a bunch of coolers with food, obviously. And I would walk onto uh, the floors for these giant conferences. And I didn't realize this, but they informed me very quickly I was wearing a baby and they said, it's a construction zone. You need to go. You need to get out now. And they would escort me out because I was checking on my booth or whatever. But right before a conference opens to the public, it's not safe.
Yeah.
I mean, he was strapped to me, so he wasn't climbing ladders or anything, but
That's cool though. Did you think
yeah.
like what am I doing traveling with my infant everywhere is just was
I mother very much like the same when they're in my belly as when they come out. They're
yeah.
just part of me. And for that first couple of years, they are. They're very much, I mean, I don't know. He was strapped to my chest 80% of the time he was awake and often when he was sleeping. He learned to speak very early. I had an idea when he was 2, so 2 years before I started Dino, because I had been a preschool teacher previously. And I told my husband, oh, I'm going to teach him his ABCs. And he's like, he knows them. Like he just spoke because he heard so much language early on.
Oh, okay.
And when you baby wear, their vestibular system also develops very quickly. So he was, he was walking when he was almost 10 months. He got exposed to a lot that I'm very excited happened for him. Um, but it depends on what your position is. If you need to be sitting at a desk, that's going to be very hard once they hit that movement stage where they need to be moving around.
So do you try to recreate that environment for kids at all? Like the amount that he was, able to take in and
Yeah,
learn?
all of the things in my facilities are to encourage that movement. So we want children to have freedom of movement. We have seats and things for them to sit in, say, we're doing circle time, and we have a baby as a part of that. Well, they're excited to be there. They might not even vocalize one little bit during that circle time, but all the other children are singing around them and they're getting exposed to that circle time, even if they're kicking their feet in a little bouncing chair. But then most of the time, when they're in their area of like the infant only area, they won't be in any kind of seat like that. They will be moving their bodies and strengthening their bodies to be able to make those movements and sit up on their own.
That makes sense. Is
Yeah.
there I mean, do you know much or is there a lot of research on, kids with siblings versus not? Just from a developmental
I don't
standpoint?
know. It's interesting because I watched it happen in 3 boys now. And
Yeah.
when they were little, my 2 oldest are 2 years apart. So my 2-year-old would suddenly be wrestling with a 6-month-old baby, and I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, go like, be nice, he's a baby." And then I realized my 6-month-old was winging his arm out to trip the 2-year-old to cause the interaction. So it wasn't my 2-year-old deciding he wanted to roughhouse, it was the
Yeah.
6-month-old saying, "Hey, don't forget about me down here, I'm interested in participating." So, and knowing them now, that's 100% that was what was happening.
My sister is 6 years older than my little brother, and I know that I've heard it said from whichever family member that she basically raised him
Right.
because she's just 6 years older, and
Mhm.
I'd imagine like he picked up a lot from her.
Totally. My sisters are 8 and 16 years old younger than me.
Okay,
Um, and so I was definitely and I was the oldest of my whole generation, and we
okay.
all lived in the same town. My aunts and uncles mostly lived in that same very small town, so I
You
got
were
to babysit since I was tiny.
I was gonna say you're like the first hired hand.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah, in your world.
yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like
We
that's
did.
what you'd think of is like,
Yeah,
oh,
right.
wonder when this kid's gonna be able to help out around here, and
And I
so
loved it. I mean, they were like my little I mean, I'm sure their mothers didn't think I was as helpful as I thought I was,
yeah.
but yeah.
I don't think I brought this up last time we talked because I couldn't really talk. I
Uh-huh.
was trying to have a conversation when you only talking, but I coached MMA for quite a few years
Okay,
here in Bozeman, and I would coach anywhere from the 5 to 7 year olds up to the I guess 18-year olds.
okay.
And Brian that runs that gym would always say, "Man, like I think half these parents are just looking for somewhere to drop their kids off after school." And he's like,
Yeah.
the daycare, I think, is the biggest thing. And like, can they stay for multiple classes? How long can they stay?
Uh-huh.
When you said name tags, you made me think of that because the kids that would come a lot, I'd get their names after a while, but there's so many. Sometimes there'd be
Right.
40 plus kids in there.
And that's the little one on 7th,
Yeah.
Griffin?
Yeah. And
Okay.
there's 3 rooms in there. So they're split up in age groups and stuff. But yeah,
Uh,
you get pretty full in there. And I'd imagine it hasn't gotten any, I haven't been in there in a while, unfortunately, but I'd imagine it hasn't gotten any slower in there.
no. Yeah, and you can't even go in as a parent
Yeah.
because it's just that little
Yeah. And
hallway.
then
My
that's,
son went there, but
yeah. And that's kind of like why that's the main thing is a space thing.
yeah,
Is if you had all the parents in there, you'd be
there's
so
no way.
crowded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just stood outside. I mean, I think that and also there's things about MMA that I really want my sons to know, and I don't have the ability to teach them
Yeah.
as a mom. My husband can. Like he
Yeah.
goes hunting with them and teaches them some of that, but I grew up in a family of girls and I don't think about the world in ways that I see them teaching in those avenues. And I mean, my husband's very involved and a great dad, but I'm always looking because at some point we won't be cool enough to like capture their attention.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for males in their life that I have similar values to that will be able to deliver that value to
Yeah.
them.
I don't know if you've met Brian. I've really like I have a lot of respect for him and a lot. He's very good with kids.
That's
He has
awesome.
a way of he turns a lot of the learning into games with the younger kids, but like he has a really good way of like he's got enough respect for them, but he's like I think he just does it in
He
a
has
great
high expectations of them,
yeah.
probably. I do
And
too.
and yeah, like I don't know the kids like that I think is one of the greatest things is what they do to the kids there. And then
Mhm.
there's a lot of good role models there because there's just a lot of guys that most of the guys that coach there, pretty much all of them are people that train there in the
Right.
adult stuff, and that's kind of how he gets the coaches because they're trained there. But it's very cool, and I learned a lot about kids just from being there. And he was the one that was talking about that when you were saying all the screens and everything about I know he studies a lot of like kid psychology and stuff because he's teaching them, but how it's getting to the point these days where kids are learning that they get the most attention from screens rather than from parents.
Oh, no.
So,
Yeah.
you go to get attention from your parent and they don't respond because they're probably on
They're
their phone.
distracted.
And
Yeah.
then you just give them this screen. So they kind of like, they almost hold that screen in a higher place of authority than the parents
That's
because,
super disturbing.
yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. And it reminds me because my son attended there until hockey started, and now all the ice has gone in Bozeman right now. So he's been
Yeah.
asking. I have to get him back enrolled.
Yeah. And some of it too, we would just like the younger kids too, we would just like do enough to like get them to burn some energy off for a little while.
Absolutely.
But when you see a kid come who starts there at 5, and I guess I was there almost every day for about 5 years, and when they've been doing it for 5 years, is you realize they picked up these games when they were 5, and then they're 9 or 10, and these kids are like little assassins. They're just because you're learning technique, but they don't know it. They're playing a game, and then when
Right.
they get to competing a little bit older, and they're like they've really just figured things out.
Yeah. But I mean, there's studies that show that builds empathy too, because they're they're competing against another little assassin.
Yeah.
So they're realizing what it's like to have someone roughhouse with them and what that feels like to them from their perspective and also from there as the giver.
It's very interesting, and I think about it all the time with my nephew because he loves to wrestle and he's 5.
Mhm.
But I'm like one thing I always learned there is like you do not just hit people. Like it is
No, there's no
never
cold
taught there.
cocking.
Yeah, and it like when they're doing Muay Thai and stuff, there's certain strikes you're learning on the bags and this stuff, and they wouldn't be sparring unless they got older. But it's a little bit contrary to what you might think, but I think it teaches a lot more self control and
Mhm.
yeah.
It's definitely interesting. I've run a Montessori as well,
Yeah,
so that's very
that's what
peace
I was gonna ask you
building.
about because I know we spoke about that a little bit, and you talk about just the whole intention of the way the Montessori is set up. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. So, with Dino Drop-In, I took kind of three uh, philosophies that came out of Europe in the early um, 19th century. So, or how do you do that? 20th century?
1900s?
Yeah, 1900s, that's more precise. So, but they were all kind of happened, and children started to go to early education at that time too, in Europe after World War II. So, a lot of those, Waldorf, Montessori, Reggio Emilia, all had this kind of piece as their center. Like, how do we raise a generation that is not going to re make the same mistakes that were made? Um, and so there's a lot of development of who they are and building that confidence and also learning to communicate with the other children in a way that helps them learn that empathy, what it feels like. So in early education, I mean, we start with babies. So they run on their own schedule. We kind of follow them basically in the infant room. And then as they get older, even less than a 2-year-old, will start working with their social emotional education. So there's behaviors that happen, and there's a reason they call them the terrible twos, and lots of what people will say now, or when my children were 2, they would say a lot, at least, was, "No, that's from 1 to 3. It's not the terrible twos, it's the terrible 2 years." But it's just the reason that happens is because the child knows what they want, but they don't have the communication skills to get what they want in a way that seems logical to an adult. So they're wanting that toy. And their skill set is not to ask or be patient. It's to grab the toy, hit the kid with the toy, bite the kid with the toy. Like they have other ideas about how to make that happen. And what we do is we help them understand that's not that's not appropriate way to get the toy. Like, could we try something else? Or maybe there's behavior where, um, we're working with a little bit older child, maybe a 2 to 2.5, and they'll try to tell us, "Oh, that one did something." Some of them have a lot of language by them, some have less. And I'll say, "Well, what were you doing right before that happened?" "Oh, I was sitting on them." "Oh gosh, well, he might have hit you because you were sitting on him." Like that's a
Yeah,
natural reaction. So helping them learn those skills and having them around peers so that they can. A lot of things just won't naturally happen in a household. But also we want to keep it as personalized to that child as we can. Like I talk a lot with the parents about um, what they're doing at home and the language we're using at school versus the language we're using at home, or trying to get on the same page with that to make sure we're not miscommunicating just because mom and dad are saying it one way at home and we're saying it differently at school.
that makes sense. I've heard like dog trainers say this about dogs is you want to just use very direct, like one words,
Hmm.
not like come here, just come. And
Right.
I think it's that same communication thing is what they say is if 5 different people are trying to train this dog and they all talk to it a different way, and it sounds like
Yeah. With children, typically, say a 2-year-old child or a young 2-year-old child will it's not that they don't understand all of the words coming out, it's that their concentration length is so short. I train my teachers to say 2 words, and the second word needs to be the body part that we're referring to. So, um, lots of people will, when they're not around children a lot at least, will say, "Stop running." Well, the only word that child's remembering, especially if they're a 2-year-old, is running. So they're like, "Great, already doing it." you know? So we'll say walking feet or gentle hands, things where there's less possibility of miscommunicating with them, meeting them where they are, helping them understand their world.
That's the difference in negative and positive reinforcement, essentially.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I've heard that even when you talk to yourself, they say if you say, don't let me forget this versus help me
You're
remember.
telling yourself to forget.
Yeah, so when you say
Yeah.
help me remember, your brain will focus on remembering, and that makes complete sense. If you're saying running,
Right.
running might be the only thing that's
Yay.
heard.
Let's go.
What's the thought process with saying slow feet instead of slow, like,
Walking feet.
yeah.
So at least if they only hear one word, they hear that we're talking about their feet. So at least we're getting them to the page that we're on. Like,
Hmm.
think about your feet.
Yeah.
Okay. And at that point, they might remember, oh gosh, we don't run in a classroom.
Hmm.
We wait till we go outside. Um, who knows? I mean, every child is this continuum of developing new skills every single day. So we're trying to make it so most of the class will understand what we're doing, but also every child. I mean, we just spoke a minute ago with MMA, but I have high expectations of children because they will meet them. Um, and I think that's good. They feel proud. They feel, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because I think coaches get this a lot too, where they're excited to show me things. They're excited every time I walk in the room, and I'm not the softest and cuddliest teacher I have. I have high expectations. I expect them to address me a certain way. I expect them to be a certain way in the classroom. This is the older classroom. I mean, babies and toddlers are a little bit different, but meeting them where they are and raising that bar, with them, so we're not coddling them or allowing them to not do what they're responsible for. Like in my preschool classroom, or it's called primary in Montessori, um, they all put their shoes away. They all hang up their coats. If there's something on the floor, I ask them what's going on, because I don't want a teenager in a house that their room is trashed. Like I want them to have like it's their responsibility from a young age. And one of the things as a parent, and I tell almost every parent I encounter this, um, I read a book when my children were young, and it said, any chore that you instill before the age of 9 is a privilege. And then once they're 9, they realize it's actually work. And so their perspective, like think of being a child and being like, oh, I get to go do this thing. Well, when you're 3, getting to wash the dishes is a huge privilege. I don't know a 3-year-old. I've not encountered a 3-year-old who doesn't love doing it. They might not do it to our standards, but they love doing it. So if you instill that habit in them at 3, 4, 5, 6, they'll get good enough by 9 to actually effectively wash the dishes. But you need to present these things at a young age so that they're excited to do those things and develop the habit before it becomes work to them.
You're making me think when I was a kid, I would lick my plate clean and I would really lobby that it was clean enough and it did not need to get
Just
washed.
put it in the
It
cupboard.
just didn't go. But when you're saying you have high expectations, what I'm also hearing is you're really telling the kids you believe in them and you
Absolutely.
believe in their potential.
Yeah,
Because if you have this high expectation and you believe they can accomplish it, I would imagine that's what most of them, if not all of them, are hearing. Because
for
if
sure.
you expect them or you have these high expectations, that means you believe they're capable of doing it. So I think that's very important and cool that it's really enabling them to accomplish more.
Absolutely. Yeah, it helps them want to learn the next thing because I'm going to come in the room, whether I'm, off. Like I will maybe talk about it later, but doing the advocacy work we were talking about before recording, um, if I'm off on one of those trips, when I come back, they're all excited. My One of my teachers once said, "It's like Santa Claus walked in the room," and I'm like, "I'm not trying to disrupt your room. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna take all the hugs because I love them."
What's the age for the Montessori school?
The Montessori is 6 weeks up to 6 years.
Okay. So that's what I was going to ask if the drop-in is a little bit of a hybrid of that with like similar principles, or is it totally different?
So in the drop, yeah, we got a little off tangent.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
Um, So in the drop-in, I took kind of all those models and then also with factors that children would only be attending once sometimes, or maybe very occasionally, maybe less than once a week, a couple times a month or something, and made it functional, because a Montessori school is not necessarily functional for a child who's never seen a Montessori school. It looks a lot different than um, their play areas at home typically look, or an activity out in the world. Like, it's all wooden materials, it's all precisely laid out. There's a lot of breakable things in a Montessori classroom. And that didn't work in a drop-in. So the drop-in was a hybrid model of that. The way we speak to children, the way we believe in children, the way I train my teachers is similar, but it fits a drop-in model as well. So we don't have screens. We have interactive activities. If a toy, we take donated toys sometimes, or one of our parents will ask, we take all the batteries out or we let them die. I don't want the toy to be doing the work. I want the child to be doing the work.
Yeah.
So if, even if it's a music toy or a drum toy that had batteries in it, children are very capable of making noise on their own. Like, we all know that.
Yeah.
So I want them to be doing that instead of passively allowing the toy to entertain the child. That's not really what I believe in.
So you said the Montessori is up to 6 years?
Yes.
Okay. And then the drop-in is
Up to 12.
12.
Yep.
Okay. And are you doing anything are you involved with anything past 6 years right now for like full-time schooling or no?
No, during COVID, I had a school that went up to 6th grade. I needed it for my boys, and then also there was some like rigmarole in the school district where they weren't going every day. For a while, it was kind of chaotic, so I had a very, very small private elementary for about a year.
You just reminded me of something I heard this guy talking about on a podcast, and it like was kind of breaking my brain a little bit.
Mhm.
I want to try to articulate it to you and hear
Okay.
what you. So he was saying that when you tell a kid, "Don't be selfish," like they steal a toy or something, you're saying, "Don't be selfish. Let that kid play with the toy." But he was saying that you're telling the kid not to be selfish, but you're showing them that you're being selfish because you're more worried about like how the kid looks and how they're acting
Uh-huh.
than what's actually going on. So he said, you are telling them to not be selfish, but you're showing them how to be selfish. And I like keep thinking about that concept of, what we do is actually what kids learn,
Oh,
not what we say.
absolutely. I mean, parenting
Yeah.
especially.
And I'm basically an armchair parent because I don't have any kids, so I can just
Right.
criticize everyone else, which is great.
But it's very, I think it's, oh gosh, it's like a constant self-analysis, because your children, when they have a behavior, especially at home, I mean, I have my children at home, obviously, it's when I notice their behaviors because they're not at school. Um, and you start seeing those things develop that you're like, oh no, they learned that from me. And it is the behaviors.
Mhm.
A lot of what they do as they get older, especially, and I can see it in younger children. It's a little easier to think it was a fluke, or just nature instead of nurture, what they learned from their parents, when they're younger. But as they get older, yeah, it's a
My
lot of
mother said that.
self-reflection.
Yeah, my mother said that. She said when she remembered when we'd be driving her crazy, and then she realized we were doing what she would do all the time.
Oh, absolutely. You see your partner and yourself in a whole different way, as far as, oh gosh, that's so, I don't know, just things. Just, it's hard to put your finger on it, like a specific thing. But often, I feel like it's easier to see in your partner often, because it's something that they do, versus being able to know what you're doing in the world is, like, for me at least, a little bit harder to put my finger on. But you'll see them say something to their child, and you're like, "But you just did that 5 seconds ago."
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like kind of doing a double take of how that makes sense. And in other people, it's way easier to see most things in other people than yourself.
Yeah, I see my fiance, I've gotten to know her sister and her mother more now, and I
Mhm.
can see like, oh yeah, I can
You come
definitely
by
tell.
that,
Yeah, like I can tell who
honestly.
your mother is, and I can tell who your sister is, and like, you know, luckily it's all mostly good things right now. But
Right.
I'm sure with even more time, I'll see everything good and bad. Yeah,
Well, and it's good things and it's bad things, and half the time they swap places throughout a long relationship. I mean, there's things that used to drive me crazy about my husband that I'm like, oh, those are the things I love the most now
Yeah,
and
that
make
makes
him
sense.
uniquely him.
Yeah. Yeah, and the roles, like at some point you're parenting your parents. So like those roles totally flip at some point.
Oh gosh,
Because
I'm
then
not
you're
prepared for
like
that.
taking care of your parents because they anyway. So
I was thinking too in children. I think that's part of why I do what I do, why I love what I do, and why they know I see them is a lot of the challenging things in children. I mean, I won't admit to having favorites, but I'm a human. Um, but some of the things that they struggle the most with are my favorite parts because that child is struggling and like it might be coming out in the classroom in behaviors. I mean, usually those are my most exciting kids to get through that, then you get to the other side and wow, they haven't had this behavior for 3 months. Oh my goodness. Like then that's what fires me up and gets me excited too. Like they
that's
made it
probably
through.
that's probably a very valuable quality to have as a
Like
teacher
you
too.
like them more because
Yeah, yeah,
they don't just get it. Lots of children, and I love them too, obviously, but they just get it in life.
yeah. I've always wondered if that even more recently, the things that were the least our least developed skills and our weak spots, if they're almost there so that we have an opportunity to really develop them and then we become world class at them in some
At
senses
those.
because we're like, God, I got to fix that. So you're really motivated to fix that quality or that skill. And then next thing you know, you're like, wow, I'm like
You're pretty good
overly
at it.
proficient at this.
Oh, I hope to have that experience one day. I feel like the things I struggle with are I continue to struggle with, but
Yeah. Well,
the things I notice at least.
for what it's worth, I grew up homeschooled. I
Mhm,
never went, and I was really didn't develop socially at all.
mhm.
And I had like pretty bad social anxiety as a teenager growing up, and was just nervous talking to anyone. And
Uh-huh.
now I've put myself in a situation where I've like talked to more people in this town and had
No.
like hundreds and hundreds of hours of talking, and I know I've very much developed my ability to talk and have conversations with people. But if you asked me that even from 5 to 10 years ago, I'd be like, that's the last thing I'd ever want.
Right.
So there was sort of this resistance and this pull to it at the same time.
I would agree with that part. I grew up in a very small town and,
Uh-huh.
I will tell my parents some of the things I do in a day, like go talk to a senator or go to testify in front of a body of whatever
Yeah.
sort. And, they're like, "Oh my goodness, like, that sounds terrible."
Yeah.
I'm like so I think for me, when I am doing it because of a greater purpose, I'm willing to step outside of my discomfort to do that thing.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing it like, I will go to an event. I was in Chicago meeting a bunch of people for small business owners around the US, and, I said, "I should." Some people brought their spouses, but it was my first time, so I didn't. And I said, "I should have brought my husband because I would know everyone in this room if he was in this room because he would go meet everyone and tell them about me, but I won't." I struggle still to tell them more about me
Yeah.
versus, like, work. I'll tell them about work and advocacy and how I wanna change the world, but not necessarily about me as myself.
Okay, well, here's your chance. We're gonna flip the whole interview.
No, we don't wanna do that.
Okay, so
You can have my husband on. He will talk about me.
the Montessori, the Dino Drop-In, and is there do you have another?
Yeah, ABC Dino Academy
Okay.
and Dino Drop-In are sister schools.
Okay. So
So
ABC is
the
the full time.
full-time version.
Yep.
It's a traditional preschool, so that method is generally called Banks method. It has centers. It's a lot like Head Start. So centers, circle time, you know, it's not dissimilar. It's more when you walk in the classroom of a Montessori, it looks different. And so that is very noticeable to someone without children. Like if you walked in ABC Dino Academy or Dino Drop-In, you would say, "Oh, it looks like kids play here." If you walked in my Montessori, you might say that. I mean, all of the things are small, but the things on the shelves don't look like toys. They are called Montessori materials and they are Montessori work. So we have a feather duster, and then we have a broom with a dustpan, and we have little activities for weaving and spooning things back and forth. Like even the most kind of normal parts of the Montessori classroom still look different. There's specific Montessori materials that are made precisely, like different wooden blocks. One's called the Pink Tower. There's the Brown Stair. They're like specific to the curriculum of Montessori. But then there's a part called Practical Life, and it looks like your kitchen on a shelf, basically, all laid out neatly. And each activity the children do in a precise way to learn it well. And it's instilling some of those things we talked about earlier of chores are actually the work of childhood. We have a lesson on how to close a door, how to carry a chair, how to carry a table with two people. Those are kind of the very beginning first day lessons in that classroom. Because we want them to be conscious of their friends. I mean, there's a lot of things we're teaching them. When we teach them to close the door, it's not just to close the door, it's to keep the 2-year-olds safe because they won't be able to get into the big kid classroom where there could be dangerous things. There's looking for other people's fingers before you close the door, looking out for your own toes before you close the door on them. They're like how to do it quietly so you don't wake up the nappers. Like there's like this concept of the external world to themselves, because a child starts out, an infant is totally self-centered, and they're supposed to be. And then as we get older, hopefully we shed some of that, and some people do.
Yeah. I'm very drawn to that,
Yeah.
to the Montessori concept. And I feel like maybe growing up on a fully operational farm is a hybrid version of that, because I was
Right.
exposed to so much real life.
Right.
I can even, it's probably, maybe it's not over 100, but I have like myself pulled 100 calves from a cow being born.
Wow.
And that when you're a young adolescent kid growing up and doing that type of thing, that's very much like, that's a very different perspective on life. But I'm thinking, you're probably not doing that in the Montessori,
No,
but
I'm certainly not doing that.
but all these little things, that's so invaluable to learn that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I just find myself even as an adult really drawn to that
It's
concept.
very fun to see, and they are so excited to do those things because they are things they see their parents doing. And maybe it's a different version. Like when we make soapy bubbles to wash something, we grate the soap with a little grater, and then we put it in a bowl, and then we have an egg beater to beat up the bubbles, and then we wash the shell or the pumpkin or whatever we're washing. So there's a whole process that we're teaching that's to help them to have like patience and self-control, and kind of set aside that immediate gratification that our world is very used to. But they're so proud of all of those steps, and they enjoy all of those steps so much that it's really fun to see them have that kind of methodical thought process. And a lot of what Montessori teaches, in my opinion about it, like that's one of the most valuable. When I first got introduced to it by a gal in town who's been doing this for over 40 years, I was immediately attracted because I hire a lot of people, and I see in our community, like things kind of on a global or on a broader scale than one individual person. Like every individual has specific talents they're great at, but I can kind of see in hiring and employing people like, oh gosh, why does no one know how to budget or do certain things in life? And I think part of what attracted to me to Montessori is this philosophy of I'm not raising for my children or for other people's. I'm not raising a 5-year-old. I'm raising a 25-year-old. I need them to be able to stay on a schedule. I need them to have responsibility. If they spill water on the floor, I want them to know to go get a paper towel and wipe that up. Or, like, yeah, what are the skills that I'm looking for in an employee, and how do I help a child to get the little tiny pieces of that?
Yeah. I guess it's a quote, or it says, give me the boy till 7 and I'll show you the man. Because they say that those years of development are so crucial to, like,
Yeah, I wonder who said that, because there's a terrible one by Hitler that is similar to that. It's really bad.
I
It's
don't think it
about,
was Hitler.
no, I hope it wasn't. But it reminds me of one that I was very traumatized by just a couple of weeks ago that I was like, oh my gosh.
What, do you know what it is or
It
no?
was like, oh gosh, something. I don't it had to do with religion too, or lack of religion, and, um, if you something about their attention before they're 12. But I wanna know yours because
I'm gonna
I
find
like
it.
the
Yeah, no,
concept,
go.
but I do not like what was done with it, obviously. That's
Give me the child until he is 7, and I will show you the man. Is commonly attributed to Saint Anagus of Loya.
huh. I'll have to look it up.
I know I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, but it says he's a Greek philosopher.
There you go.
Anyway,
A lot of what we do, though, is instilled so young. I was talking to someone the other day and realized this one behavior I have, um, is from childhood. Like, I was a child of the '80s, and we I threw temper tantrums, and then you were separated, and then you figured it out. You figured out how to manage that explosive emotion, and then you were allowed to participate again, and, the thing I was figuring out was, like, I learned to hug people mostly, as an adult, like, I don't know, I grew up very loved. It's
mhm,
not that my family didn't hug me, but it was within our family. It was not like I wasn't what people will say, "I'm a hugger," and they go hug everyone in the room. I was not that person. Around children, of course, but around adults, not at all. Um, and so I said, guess I don't know when to let go. Like, I hug someone and I'm like, "Okay, we're done." Like, I don't know how to do that. Like, there's a part of it that I didn't learn as a child because the way that we managed our emotions was you go hang out by yourself, figure it out, and then come back. And that's not necessarily how we do that anymore with children. Not with young children, at least. We help them through those big emotions.
this is probably pathetic, but I'm gonna say it. Me and my fiance were talking about this with hugs.
Yeah.
When do you stop?
Oh, that's so funny.
So so she if she really needs the hug, so she
Uh-huh.
initiates it. I don't let go until I feel her let go.
Okay.
So that's our sort of, I guess it's a spoken rule, but unspoken is, you know, if she's coming to me because she needs a hug, then I'm gonna hold that hug until I feel her let go. And that's like now we've sort of trained it into our nervous systems.
I
So
like that.
and I don't know if that's like how you should think about that generally for everyone, but we think about that for each other. And it's
Yeah. Well, and I think as should be so obvious at my age, like talking about things helps.
yeah,
Because some of those things, it's like I never thought about it. I just know I feel awkward, so therefore I will not do that thing.
yeah.
Um, but yeah,
And she might have helped me, like
figure that out.
maybe she thought I needed to talk about this, so she brought it up.
That's usually how that works in my life too.
Okay, so you've started these Montessori's and you were really drawn to it. What was your childhood like growing up? Do you feel like that resembled a Montessori school in any way?
I mean, I was the oldest in my generation, so I grew up very close to my aunts, uncles, grandmas, mom and dad. Um, I feel like I mean, my memory of it is that it was idyllic. I'm sure it probably wasn't, but like that's the feeling I get when I think about it. Um, and yeah, I hung out with my grandma a lot, and I know I cooked with her. We washed dishes. We did all of the things. That was right by her brother's land, which he owned a farm. So I'd ride around in I probably won't call them the right things, but I think it was a combine, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Thresher, I think the thresher I liked because it went around in circles. Um, but sitting in the cab of that and like being around the cows, I did not help any have cow babies or cows. I didn't help with calving. That was not something they ever asked me to do. We did have three-wheelers. So we had this independence. And I think like in the way I raise my children, I want them to have that as much as possible in the environment that they're in. Um, but yeah, I mean, we planted gardens, like all of those things. Like I want to provide at least an inkling of that in my school. I don't remember being 4, so most of the children leave me before they have conscious memory for long periods of time. So I see a lot of kids around town that I was very close to for years of their life, like sometimes from before they were born, and they never know who I am, but their mom does.
Where did you grow up?
Warroad, Minnesota.
Okay.
Very, like, right by the Canadian border.
Because you said you don't remember being 4, when me and my buddy Kyle started podcasting, we had this question we were asking a lot of the guests was, what's your earliest childhood memory? Do you,
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I have so back in the day, they had swing sets and they had baby swings that would fold. It was like 2 wooden pieces, kind of like a folding wooden chair, like you would see at a wedding maybe.
Mhm.
Um, and I remember I've just been told that's not really a memory. I mean, I remember that thing folded up, but I think people just told me that so many times. Um, my earliest memory, dang. I mean, I think most of the ones that I think about often, I remember walking down the gravel road with my grandma, and we decided we were gonna learn all the words to the rose, and so we just sang. We're out in the country, you can sing as loud as you want, you don't have to be good. Um, Doing that, my grandpa would let me drive his truck to the dump, when I was young enough that I had to stand on the seat, like I couldn't reach the pedals or anything, so I don't know.
That's like the Alan Jackson song, "Drive."
Oh, really?
Yeah. He talks about his, like, him learning how to drive and letting his daughters drive this truck to the
Yeah, I
dumps.
remember the first, like, I could visualize the first time, because in the country, there's, like, the roads you turn onto are 2 tire tracks,
Yeah.
and so his driveway was 2 tire tracks, and the first time he let me steer on, because you had to be precise to hit that, like, that's really hard when you're a kid. I remember the first time I got to steer, and I'm sure he was probably down here steering. Like, I probably wasn't actually steering, but, um yeah, that was a big deal. I was like, "I made it. I did it." So, stuff like that. I I don't know, it's interesting. I think of, like, objects and places in the world more than maybe in feelings than the specific, like, instances.
So I'm curious this journey so it's sounds like a smaller farm town in Minnesota,
Uh-huh.
and then you're running these, what's the best term? These academies,
Schools,
schools here,
preschools.
and you said when the woman asked you about, "I need someone who's business-minded to help me run this," like,
Mhm.
how did you
Yeah.
develop a business mind? Was that do you think that was from that farm? Was that when you got older? How'd you
I think it was I don't know. I mean, I feel like a lot of it was just, like, somewhat happenstance, but I don't necessarily believe in that. I think it was placed in my path for a reason.
Mhm,
Um So, yeah, when I got to Montana, I was a preschool teacher in Minnesota. I went to school to be a doctor. Um, I decided, like, this shockingly conscious and thoughtful realization at 22 that HMO sucked. And I probably didn't want to be managed by someone in an office in another state as a doctor. And I thought that will make me crazy. And I wanted to be a pediatrician. So I started teaching special needs kids. And then I got to Montana and I couldn't afford to teach. There was no way I could pay rent here. Um, so I worked for MSU briefly, and then I worked for a business incubator. And I never realized, and then I had my boss at Wayfair, the food company. So he was the first person. I always thought I would work for a state agency or a nonprofit. Like, my value system is what guides kind of everything in my life. And that passion to be a positive impact on my community. So I thought, I had the picture of the ABCs of business always be closing or whatever from Gary Glenn Ross, like that picture of the 80s businesses, that was gross. And I didn't like that. So having that boss, Kelly, um, and seeing how he led with his values, even though he was in a for-profit business, made that world accessible to me. And then I was all over it because I realized having fundraised for nonprofits and all of that, I did not like asking other people for money. Um, I would rather provide them a value and then get paid for that value. So, um, I realized you could do that with integrity and really positively impacting your community, and that's what sold me on being a business owner. And now I can see it everywhere,
yeah.
you know?
Do you know do you ever try to think of where the draw for working with kids came from? Because it seems like that's the constant theme.
I think being the oldest in my generation
Mhm.
it was instilled since I was, very, very young.
Did you say, like, 6 and 8 years younger were your
My
sisters?
sister well, one was born when I was 8, and I always say the other one was born when I was 16, but I might have been, like, 15 and I think I turned 16 right after she was born.
Okay.
She was born in the summer. Um or maybe I turned 15 right after that. I don't know. But I left the house when she was 2 years old.
Okay.
So we are now adults together and we have a relationship, but it's strange for an 18-year-old and a 2-year-old to have a relationship,
Yeah.
So it was a different kind of growing up. But then there were a bunch of cousins in between that didn't actually live in my house, but lived at my aunt's house that was 3 doors down, or, my uncle's kids. So we all grew up together. And I think that just caregiving and the generations just kind of got mixed up. Like I'm only, I think, 13 years younger than my aunt. And then, like, I don't know. It's part of being in that small town atmosphere where all of the families live close and you're with them regularly. Um, plus, I forgot about this too. I was a lifeguard when I was younger, and I got my first job at 13 working at the swimming pool. I wasn't a lifeguard yet, but I taught swimming lessons. That was my very, very first job, was working at, like, taking the money at the swimming pool and then teaching swimming lessons in really cold water to the preschoolers. Because the youngest person there would teach the youngest kids, and then the people that had more experience or
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
skills to teach would teach
So you
older
always
kids.
kind of have these different roles,
Always. Yeah. It's
working
like
or not.
ingrained in my DNA.
My father was 20 years older than my mother. So there's like my first cousin, Greg, who's in the wedding, I think he's like 65.
Hmm.
And
That's awesome.
then his kids, they're my second cousins. They're the same age as me. So there's
Yeah.
like a full generational, um, like lapse in from my father to his sister, because she started having kids when she was 18 and he waited till he was in his 50s to have kids.
Right.
So there's like a 30-year.
So different.
So I think that happens, like, not all the time, but
There's a picture of my grandpa's graduation photo, and the picture of his brother on the couch in a diaper.
Yeah.
And so it's like even the generation before mine was off kilter like that. So there was just always so much family and so many kids around. My sister asked, like, how I learned all of the songs I sing to the kids. And I'm like, well, I sang them to you when I was still in high school. Like, that's what we do, you know?
Oh, that's funny.
All of yeah, because when she had kids, she's the youngest. My mom had the oldest and the youngest of my generation.
Mhm.
So she was the youngest. There's no one coming after
Yeah,
her.
yeah, yeah.
And I didn't have kids till I was older. So my kids were not around when she was like preteen.
Yeah.
Which
So I
was
guess even with you and your sister, there'll be that 16-year gap of.
right.
Yeah.
But it's strange because our children are, like, she's done having children and her youngest is 4 and my oldest is 14. So we all had kids in 10 years.
So you're leveling things back out.
Yeah, right. That's
Yeah.
so weird.
Where do you think the drive or desire to do something, like you were saying earlier and you've alluded to, like, do you want to do something impactful, something that's meaningful?
Yeah, my goal when I started Dino was to revolutionize childcare.
And how, like, where does that come from?
I just see, well, it's a broken economic system. I don't think there's a lot of argument that that's not a true statement. How to fix it is challenging to get everyone on the same page with. But, you know, when we started needing childcare, when both women and men went to work, or moms and dads, two income households developed, it was often in people's homes. Like, that still works. It's not what everyone wants anymore. Like, I don't know why it's like that, but in a town the size of Bozeman, growing up, if your neighbors needed you to babysit their kid, they would just walk their child over, or, there was like this different relationship between neighbors and people in the community. And my neighbors, I ask permission for them. We have the portal of fun. It's a hole in our fence that our kids
Nice.
can go back and forth. We just cut that in last year and they go through it all the time, but I would never ask them to watch my children for 5 minutes. I'll say I'm not going to be there. Like, my 14-year-old can do it now. Like, he can call the police or cook dinner or, all of the emergency things. So I think it's just different. I can't remember the question.
Oh, where did this desire come from to change the world? Or
Oh, yeah. And so seeing how that it's such a problem for so many families. I went when my son was 4. That's when I opened Dino. I had gone and looked for a preschool for him. and they all had very long waiting. Anywhere that I would bring him had a very long waiting list. He had gone to my friend's house who had an in-home, and I was comfortable with her because I knew her for 10 years. Um, Bringing my child to someone's house that I met through some network, like I had known her since before she was married and started having
Yeah.
kids, so I trusted her. It's such a different thing to bring your child into someone's house. To me, that seemed strange. That felt uncomfortable for me. But I knew her, so I was willing to do that. I wasn't willing to do that with it to any other person's house. So I started looking for a preschool, and I couldn't find one that fit because they wanted my children so much. And I had waited till I was 35 to have children. So I didn't want to give them up that much. I didn't want them gone from me 40 hours a week. That seemed like, well, why do I have them?
Yeah.
Um, I wanted them with me. So that's what prompted the drop-in. And then the other ones developed out of that because there are families that need 40 hours a week or sometimes more. And we want to meet families where they are because each child, in my belief system, every child has the parents they have for a reason because that's who they need. And so we put a lot of autonomy on that. Another thing I struggled with when I was looking for care for my children is um, I didn't want to parent like every other parent. And I really got upset when schools would say, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that, because I wasn't coming from it from a inexperienced place. Because I had taught preschool for years. I was informed and they were trying to tell me how to parent, and I didn't like that. So when I work with a family, I want to know how they want us to do things. If they're open to our ideas, I say, you should ask us because I don't want to step on your toes. But lots of parents don't come from 10 years of teaching experience. They come from, oh my goodness, my baby should, like they've read the books,
Yeah.
but they haven't done all of the things and had all of the experience practicing with other people's children.
Let me try to say back what you said. Everyone has the parents they have for a reason.
Uh-huh.
Where did that come from? Or
I just feel like each family is different and they should be allowed to do it the way they want. Your parents were allowed to homeschool.
yeah,
I don't think we should be forced to parent in a way that isn't authentic to us, how we think we should do it. So say I wanted my children all co-slept. Um, and when during the time my oldest was co-sleeping, so 14 years ago, he'll be 15 in July. There was an ad campaign, I think out of the state of Wisconsin, where it had like a picture of a king bed or whatever, a master suite. And on the pillow, there was a baby and a butcher knife. Like co-sleeping is so dangerous, you might as well put your baby in bed with a butcher knife. And I'm thinking, okay, I have a problem with that because there's lots of studies that say that's good for the baby. And then there are people who it's absolutely not okay for. That is totally fine. I think both can coexist. I live in Montana. I'm a vegetarian. I will protect your right to eat
what?
meat. I know, the travesty. I was vegan in Montana for a long time. But we both have the absolute right to make those choices in our lives. And I believe parenting is a lot of that comes out in parenting where people see things different ways and they don't feel like they can coexist. But I don't see that as a problem at all, even within a school, because sure, if I have every parent in every family be a cookie cutter of each other, it's going to be easier to run my school because I will know what every motivation of like, of course it would be easier, but that is not our world. And I don't think it makes my life richer or my school better to have that be the case. Like, that's silly.
Yeah. I agree with this completely. And I think about this with business all the time because I
Mhm.
think a lot of our business systems are broken.
Oh,
The way
yeah.
we incentivize, like having employees, the way they're incentivized and the way it's built out is just like it does not make sense, and it just creates all this animosity all around.
Totally.
And sometimes I'll be up late at night, and I'm just trying to stop thinking so much or think more about there's got to be a different way to do this than follow this same script because it's creating animosity and it's creating people that aren't excited to show up because I just think the way we incentivize people, and that's just for business, like this whole concept for kids and the way they're raised and the way they go to school makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And how to I think they can coexist, and we're all going to have certain biases and lean certain ways, but it's more exciting to think about, what can we do specific to this person and what they want, and how can we create things that. And it sounds like you're trying to do this same thing with a lot of the childcare.
Right. Yeah, whatever fits your family. So maybe, and we also have part-time Montessori. That's some places will allow you to attend for part-time. Some places are more strict. But I want to meet each of those families. Like if they only need 2 days a week, that's totally fine. I mean, there's a certain lower threshold where we can't develop a relationship with that child. And so that's where I draw the line. Wherever the child tells me, though, it's not because of some ambiguous thing I thought up. It's because that child is not developing a relationship with the teachers and then struggling because they feel uncomfortable at school. Like it's because the child is telling me that, not because I have an arbitrary line in the sand because it's convenient.
So after did all your kids go through this Montessori school, or just the younger two?
So unfortunately, I didn't get exposed to Montessori until 2020.
Okay.
And my two children were already in public school at the time.
Hmm.
Part of the reason the Montessori exists is because I built what was, and I don't have it any longer, Acton Academy, which is they call it Montessori for the 21st century, and it's not screen free. There's computer work in that elementary school, um, but to build that, I I needed to understand Montessori better, because a lot of the children, like the gentleman who invented that, his children went to Montessori, and when they were ready to go to public school, he asked the Montessori teacher, "When would you send them?" And she said, "The sooner the better, because once they've had all this freedom and you take it away, they're going to be miserable." And he said, well, that was a terrible answer to that
Yeah.
question I wasn't expecting. So what my children did from 2020 on, my son just went back to high school, like he re-entered public school in high school. But for all those years in the middle, so about 6 years now, they have either done homeschool. They did the Acton Academy model for a couple of years. They've done homeschool a little bit or micro schools all during that interim. Um, and, built with my husband, chopped down trees, like rehab properties, done a lot of things not attached to a classroom, but also, I was really nervous before my son went back to public high school because I thought, okay, here's the test. Like, did it work? And he's doing great. And so I think there's so many ways to teach a lot of the skills that our children need, and they're not necessarily sitting at a desk.
That's what I was going to ask, is if there was a natural transition after the Montessori school or what.
A lot of children do go to public kindergarten.
Yeah.
In Bozeman, it's a lot because of the cost. I mean, there's a couple of very small, like my son is in a middle school Montessori program. There's 4 children in that program.
Oh, wow.
In that whole school with the elementary as well, I think there's 12. So it's not. It's not necessarily functional from a business standpoint. I mean, his school is doing great, and I'm excited that he's able to be there. But from a financial standpoint, as a parent, it's very expensive, and it's very hard to continue that. We ask parents to do that for 5 years before their children go to public school, but to do that for 18, I mean, it's overwhelming to think about the cost of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like you don't want to, like, it's very cool if you create that enabling environment, but you don't also want to create a bubble. So
Right.
what's the balance of, like, hey, this is like you're going to be very much involved with the general population if you're going to be a citizen here.
Right.
So you don't want to put them in this bubble where, hey, why is nobody acting like everyone acted, for the first
We're
18 years?
right. Well, and we expose our children a lot to adults. So that okay. So part of Montessori is the oldest classroom is 3 years old to 6 years old. So that's half of their lifespan so
Hmm.
far. Um, and these broad ranges of children in one classroom is unique to or somewhat unique to Montessori. Um, and I will tell parents they get nervous because a 6-year-old's rough play is way different than a 2.5 to 3-year-old's rough play. Like they're
Hmm.
just not as capable. Um, and it's not that. in every genre of what that could be, rough play or reading or math. It's like such a wide range between those two ages. But they're learning from each other. And I tell them all the time, in what time in your life, aside from grade school or aside from your schooling years, did you hang out with all people your exact same age? Like, I don't encounter someone my exact age in a day most of the time.
Yeah.
They're all adults. They might be within 30 years of my age, and that's great. And we can communicate and all of that. So for my children, that part was important to me too. They can speak to adults. They're not scared of them. I've had them pitch at Leads Group where I met
Okay. Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
because they should be able to do that. There's nothing that should keep them out of that room. And I think we, as a community or as a society, we have these arbitrary rules. Like 11-year-olds shouldn't pitch to 40-year-olds in a Leads Group. And I'm
You've
like,
had 11-year-olds do it there.
oh, my son has had a business since he was 8.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he loves it. I won't tell you what. I'll have him come and talk to you about his new business because it's going to be the biggest one yet, and I'm pretty stoked about it. But I also don't. The barriers to entry aren't super high, so I don't want to talk about it.
Well, when he wants to, you'll have to sign the waiver for him, but he can definitely come.
For sure.
That'd be
Oh, they'll
very
be
fun.
stoked. I am very excited about it. My son, my older son, they're doing it as a pair. The third brother will probably participate a little bit, but we'll see. But my oldest is in Gallatin High, and he's doing the whole business plan, like, decently. I got to read it this weekend. For his entrepreneurship class. And then, yeah, we're kind of assembling some of the pieces and parts that are required. And I'm pretty stoked. It's going to be
That's
cute.
great that they have an entrepreneurship class in the high
He
school.
started, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I was pretty excited about it because I think you can learn a lot of the skills. Like, wouldn't have math been more interesting if we were, like, if the primary purpose of that was selling, like, well, let's give the example of my son. His first business was cotton candy. Well, we learned a lot from that. He learned about unit pricing. Well, that's all kinds of different math. That's multiplication, addition, subtraction, division, all of the things to figure out your price, make sure you're not losing money on that. And like, what's the useful life of the machine? How do you make the fire alarms not go off when you make cotton candy? That's a whole lesson that we learned together. But yeah, and then I think part of his motivation is we're kind of, I was vegetarian. My kids are vegetarian. I was vegan. I'm kind of health conscious. And so that was a way he could get sugar in the house.
Mm-hmm.
If he sold cotton candy and snow cones and all of these things that are pure things that I won't normally let them have.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, well, you'll let me make cotton candy because it's for a business. I'm like, well, okay. Yeah, well.
Yeah, Riley Rivers did the podcast a little whiles back with Rivers Landscaping.
Okay.
And he was at MSU taking business classes, and he had already started his business.
Yeah.
And he was saying how useful it was then.
Totally.
And he may have otherwise been like, just falling asleep. But he was saying he bid a job for MSU while he was still.
That's awesome.
And he got the job. Like, very cool. But that concept of when you can see it applied to real life makes
more
complete sense.
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I got my master's degree from MSU, and I kept saying, I have to do this master's thesis. I'm going to spend 6 months researching something. What do you want me to research? Because I worked in an office in MSU too at the time. And they would say, I don't know, you can do anything you want, anything. The world, I'm like, I want it to matter.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do it on some ambiguous thing that is going to get shuffled into a file cabinet and never looked at for 30 years. Like, that's not my goal.
Yeah, could this be of use to the world?
Right. Like, why would I do that? And so what I did there, the president of ASMSU at the time had said research was a net cost to students because the research dollars that come in aren't charged this overhead that it costs. And so then obviously money's not magic. It's someone's paying for it. And so I did a counter argument.
Nice.
And backed it all up because I don't think it's actually true. That statement I didn't think was true. So I countered it because I worked in the research arm of the university at the time. So
how was it received?
I mean, it's probably in a file cabinet, but whatever. I had a point.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine you were a little more motivated too.
I was excited to disprove that because, yeah, and who knows? I left the university 6 days after graduation because I wanted to go work with startups and something a little bit more my speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was That's what segued you into being a business owner working at this.
Seeing all of those companies going, that was called Tech Ranch. It was a business incubator kind of attached quite distantly from MSU.
Mhm.
So we had programmers and things coming out of the university and doing startups. And yeah, and you can see that around the community still. Like photonics is really big in Bozeman. We didn't have a part of that, but like they could land there for office space, kind of how co-working is happening now. It was a kind of a co-working space for very young startups. Montana Molecular was there. They're a big company here in town now. Well, big in their impact on the world. I think it's only, I know her and I don't think she has that many employees, but what she's doing for the world is really cool. Um, but seeing all of those companies kind of coming about and like how organic that happened, and it was fun and exciting. And we would have, like our conference room, we would just have little powwows once in a while or little, meet and greets and hang out. Um, and that was, sort of like a small town probably, like just kind of what I was used to, knowing people and being around them and having that kind of community. And then working for Kelly and seeing that you could do business and have the utmost integrity and be proud of what you were doing, like
Yeah.
that was important to me.
Isn't it inspiring when you get around somebody like that and
Yeah.
they're like making good money and,
Like,
doing
yeah.
something that's, yeah, I don't want to sit here and dog every nonprofit because there's a lot of great ones around here, but I'm also
Yeah.
like, man, there's got to be a way to do this for profit.
Yeah. And I think there's certain aspects of a nonprofit that I think, are, it's critical that they are nonprofit. And then there's things I feel like there's different ways to do that
Yeah.
with more of a business mindset. Um, there are economic equations in our society that are just broken, and they're
Mhm.
not going to get unbroken without a third party influence, whether that's a government, business, nonprofits. That's how it's always been. But I think they're much closer than they used to be, to being similar, you know?
Yeah. I think with all the tech and everything that's evolving is there's so many broken, outdated models. A lot of them are going to get weeded out because things are getting way too expensive and unreasonable to keep doing with this broken model.
Mhm.
And it's going to get to the point, and it's also weird because I was talking to you about driverless cars.
Mhm.
It's a huge issue in Big Sky because there's nothing local up there. No one can get around if they come stay up there. A friend of mine, Bryant, he worked up there for a while. He kind of describes it as islands up there
Oh,
because you have
yeah, just getting
yeah, you
between.
have Moonlight Town Center and like the Yellowstone Club. Everything is it's a little island, and if you
Mhm.
don't have a car or rent a car, there's not any public transportation up there. At some point, there's going to be some evolution up there where people aren't going to pay $200 an hour with a minimum of 2 hours for 15 minutes of driving. It
Right.
just makes no sense. But we're in this. It's a weird bubble up there. But I just think that eventually technology is gonna, and then it's gonna be weird because we're gonna be like, cool, now we don't have all these jobs because.
Right.
But I don't know. It's a weird juxtaposition of
Yeah.
we don't want to take all these jobs away, but does that mean we just keep having these jobs that are we're charging unnecessary, unreasonable amounts of money? Like I don't know what you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there are upsides to human interaction. We were talking about that
I
earlier too.
can't agree more. I was like,
Yeah.
that's why I do
Obviously,
this.
like,
Yeah.
I don't think, there's very little. There are things that I think technology will innovate in my field that will be amazing. Like, even since starting, the cameras have gotten better. I have cameras in all of my centers. They're not accessible to the general public, but parents get a code and I can see and
Mhm.
record. Um, and then, like, our door codes, like, I thought, years ago, I thought this was a pipe dream years ago. So I was probably open for a year or two, and there was someone in law enforcement or something that had come in and said, um, I don't remember exactly what the conversation was, but my idea was, "Oh my goodness, I want the door to unlock when the parent walks up because it sees their face." And that was like, there was no, like, idea of that would even be a thing. Like, our computers didn't recognize us yet, or our phones didn't have facial recognition yet. And, but I thought that would be so cool if it just, like, said, "Hi, Bob. when
Yeah.
Bob walked up to the door, would you like, and say his son's name, and of course we'd have to figure out privacy and all of that. But now that's real. I mean, I feel like if I had enough money, I could totally do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's how
Not
we
very
unlock
hard.
our phones now. So
Right.
it's not,
It wouldn't even be a thing.
yeah.
Um, but having door codes for everything is still a thing. And I think there are parts of that and I'm really interested and actively trying to figure out how to make life easier for my teachers all the time, because it's an emotionally taxing job. And then there's the relationship with the parents, and then also the communication, which if it could be constant, that would be great. But our hands are busy caring for children, and we can't be interacting with phones. And we don't want the children to see another adult, like we were talking about parents being interacting with their phones and children getting their value from screens earlier. Um, well, I don't want that to be at my school, but the parent wants to know what's going on. So the teacher has to look at her phone to type in what's going on, when a child maybe doesn't need a full bottle or has, you know, I don't know, I didn't want to say it, but has an accident or
Yeah.
like a diaper issue or whatever happens, and we want to communicate that, but it's never going to be real time because they're busy dealing with the actual situation in real time. And also, it's another added thing that I think could be erased by technology. Like, obviously, the eye to eye contact, the skin touch, all of those things that happen in a preschool and we want to happen to our very young children. Like, we want them to feel that, feel us as humans. But technology can supplement that in ways that is like not that like it's the supplemental part of that equation, not the main part.
Yeah.
Like, our jobs will never go
Not
away.
replacing the teacher.
Not
Yeah. Yeah.
replacing the human, but making the teacher's job just seamless. Because if the camera can see that you're changing a diaper, why, or diaper's probably not a great example, but feeding a bottle,
Yeah.
and it can see clearly enough how many ounces are left in that bottle, it can update the app for you.
Yeah.
It shouldn't take our thumbs.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah. Just to,
Yeah.
yeah. So can they hop on those cameras and look into the
Yeah.
classroom? Yeah.
Yeah. They
So
can
that's
see
got to
what's going
give,
on.
yeah, yeah. That's got to give a lot of reassurance, I'd imagine.
For sure. At the drop-in, because it's a busier place, I would think of like at the Montessori, the people who watch the camera the most are the infant parents
Yeah.
because they're like missing their baby, and I want them to. That's fine. Like that, they should. That's a
Yeah.
correct motion. So I want them to be able to pop on anytime. But finding a baby on a camera is easy because a baby's not moving very much, and you just know what they wore this morning or what color outfit they have on. In a drop-in with a 4-year-old, I'm like, you need to be wearing a very loud pattern or a fluorescent shirt
I
because
was gonna
all
s-
of the kids are moving. Most of them have like light brown to blonde hair. Like, there's not a huge variation in the children.
I was
And
gonna
they're moving.
do the kids show up in construction vests or something? So they're,
Yeah. No, I just say, just remember what they have on and make sure, like, if the sleeves are blue and the middle's white, you'll be able to pick them out. Or if it's checkerboard or if it's fluorescent,
yeah.
or wear a hat. Just something, because once the kids are moving, they become much harder to find on the camera.
That's cool. I think I'm with you with, I think there's a lot of like technology can take away a lot of the admin stuff that can
Mhm.
make a job that, takes a lot of somebody already,
Yeah.
make it an easier job to sustain and do a lot of that. And I also think it'll like help clean up some of the muck in our, just our outdated ways that we do things.
Yeah. I think there's a lot, like, from a licensing perspective too, it would be able to tell the licensor all of the hours that she's there, a few hours a year
Yeah.
visiting with us, and we tell her all the things we're doing and what's going on. But they could, I don't know if this would ever happen, but we could basically run her a report and say, well, you don't have to guess how many times we change a diaper on a day you're not here. Here's a report,
Yeah.
you know?
Get a daily update essentially.
Yeah, like, or like with the fraud that they say is going on in some of the places like Minnesota and Washington's dealing with it now, been kind of bouncing around the country with fraud. Like, are these real children? Well, yeah, they're real children.
Yeah.
We have them here with us. You can see them. I'm not going to march them out when you show up with your video camera, because I will have them in lockdown in the bathroom. We have drills for this, but they're here and I can prove it. to the right
What
people.
is this fraud that's going around?
Oh, in Minnesota over Christmas break, there was a guy who said there's all this fraud in Minnesota daycares. He went to a bunch of daycares and knocked on the door. And because they didn't parade the children out to see him, so he knew there were children there, he said that they were fake. Like they weren't really operating childcare centers. And I said, and the first thing I thought is, if a random 23-year-old showed up knocking on my door trying to get in my building, we would be in lockdown drill. Like we would all be in the bathroom reading a storybook, pretending nothing was happening to those children until whoever answered the door figured it out, because that would be an unsafe situation. And it was Christmas break, so most childcare centers were closed, as were mine. So there
What
was
what
that.
what was the allegation? What would they be trying to?
They were trying to prove that all of these millions and millions and millions of dollars were going to fake corporations.
Oh, is this?
Because in Minnesota, there was a thing where this food program was actually not feeding people during COVID. There was like $34 million in fraud or something like that. They set up all these shell corporations and said they were feeding these low-income children because schools were closed, so their food was, lots of children have free or reduced lunches. So to replace those, there was a thing during COVID. But then this was like the next layer of finding the fraud. Not to say that I'm not smart enough to figure out fraud. Like I don't have any desire to do that. But I'm sure that there are people that do. It kind of drives me nuts when you can see through it though in a second. But everyone who's not in the field can't, because they don't realize, oh, we have fire drills, we have lockdown drills, we have all of these things to keep children safe and make sure our teachers are trained, because the children are not lining up and figuring out how to do a fire drill. They're little. Like we have systems so that we can make sure they're safe at all times, and we have to practice them for the teachers as much as for the children.
Yeah. And then I know you said we were talking about DC and that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of stuff are you advocating for this stuff, or what's the
So the biggest thing I'm advocating for right now is the 40 at a federal level. So at a state level, they have a whole different piece of the puzzle that they control. So at a federal level, I really want the 45F to have a level playing field for all for-profit businesses. So right now, childcare providers are held to a different standard than every other type of business. So if you wanted to provide childcare for your employees or subsidize childcare for your employees, you would get a tax credit, a 50% tax credit, up to $500,000 to provide that care. So you have a benefit as a business owner in the form of a tax credit. I'm the only one in our economy, or me as a provider. Providers are the only ones that are not eligible for that tax credit unless 30% of the children in that room are my employees' children. So I have this other threshold. Well, that's all well and good until you realize if 30% of the children in my school are my employees' children, one, I'll go bankrupt the first month because I can't afford to pay that much or not have that much income. My margins are not 30%. And also that means every teacher must be a parent and have at least 2 children under 5 because ratios. So for 30% of the children in that building to be my employees' children, every teacher has to be the mom or dad of at least 2 children under 5. And that's just that's not feasible.
And why do you know why that?
They have that so that you as a business owner would not open a childcare for your business and then be competition to me. But your business has much better margins than mine, I'm guessing, because almost every other business in the world does. So why would Google, I believe, probably somewhere. I could give local examples. Why would Zoot? They have in-house childcare. They created that. They're not trying to compete with me as a childcare provider. They're trying to provide a benefit for their employees. They do allow children from the community to be a part of that program, but they're not looking to make money on that childcare program. They're making money doing what they do as Zoot. Does that make sense? There's not.
So
it's an like a fake problem.
Yeah, it's something that would probably rarely, if ever, happen.
Right. I can't imagine a scenario in which it would happen. And then they also will say, well, then you could get this money to make a facility. And I'm like, is that actually a problem? I mean, one, I'm not going to open a childcare just because I could get a tax credit. Like, you actually have to owe taxes for a tax credit to matter. And
Yeah.
I would say on the whole, childcare providers are a very small, they're paying very little in taxes, generally speaking.
I guess you could, I mean, maybe you could say with a massive company, you could see where that would be an issue. I don't know.
But if they have a massive company, then they're probably filling that whole childcare with their children, with their
Yeah,
employees'
yeah.
children.
And most, I say most, but maybe I'm not correct on this, but most people that have a business, that's where they focus. They're not trying to start a childcare business. It's
Well, and
just,
part of what I do for advocacy too is helping people see, whether it's elected officials or the general public, that this is a professional field and um, it requires professional attention. Just like the CEO of Zoot, he's not concentrating on running the childcare. He needs to concentrate on what's best for the entity he's the CEO of. And this is a whole other professional field. So to think that this is like a side hustle is you're just going to dump more money into that side hustle than you would if you subcontracted that to someone who knows how to make all of the numbers work in that field.
yeah, I
Like,
agree.
I would not try to, like, if I need a ride, I'm not creating a limo company.
Yeah. That's what I mean is most, I
Like,
think
I will, but
most competent business owners don't think that way.
right. And so it's this thing that was created to protect the government from fraud, but the logic behind it is lacking
Yeah.
because the scenarios they're thinking they're protecting everyone from are not things that a business owner would logically do.
But it's hindering
But
you
it
and
hinders me because I do provide tuition assistance or full scholarships to the children of my employees. And so, although I'm lucky to be able to do that, and it's tenuous at best that I will be able to continue to do that, um, I always say money's not magic.
so you
It's
can't get
just
that you
math.
can't get that tax credit
I can't get
because you
that tax credit. So that hinders the salaries of all my other employees because my income is tuition, my
hmm.
outflow is salaries.
It seems like like it just seems like there would logically be an exception for someone who already has that type of business.
There is an exception, it's just in the wrong direction.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's
We
yeah.
are the exception. We're the
Yeah.
only entities that are not allowed. The rule is if you pay taxes, you're eligible for this tax credit unless you're a child care provider.
Yeah, that's
It's messed up. And then at a state level, I would say the biggest thing that's happening right now, there was a bill passed by both houses and vetoed by Governor Gianforte that would provide childcare for providers' children. And they would be eligible for this thing that we have in our state called the Best Beginning Scholarship. Um, and so at a state level, I really want, so the governor said that at a meeting in last September to a bunch of providers that the Go Trust would fill that gap. And so my goal is to make sure that happens because providing the subsidy for the providers is critical to my ability to continue to provide free care. So just because they get the subsidy does not mean that they'll be paying the tuition that I charge because the subsidy is lower than that. But I can cover, 35% of it. Every one of my employees gets a minimum of 35% off tuition, many of them up to 100%.
mhm.
But that subsidy would fill that gap. So they could all get 100% then.
So what's got to happen
For that to
yeah.
happen, there's a committee that is deciding on this Go Trust, what they're going to spend. I think they have $3 million for this fiscal year, which is only like 2 more months. So my hope would be that they do what the governor said would happen at that meeting of childcare providers last September, and um, reopen. They did a trial of that program a couple of years ago, and it worked fantastically. In Bozeman, they had some stipulations as far as total income of the household that didn't work because in Bozeman, you need to make a lot of money to live here. You can't afford to rent without like 3 months of rent
Mhm.
of income per month compared to rent. But the wording of the new or what the law was when it passed both houses, was such that it would be for all providers. And if you think about it, anyone who works in my field is taking a hit, even if they're married to a doctor. That other spouse is taking the hit of the low wages that exist in
Yeah.
childcare. And we have to have low wages because otherwise families can't afford tuition. So, yeah,
Yeah, and that sucks because
it
you wanna
does.
pay your employees good, and
You do. And
you
if
want
it was
people to be
about, I always tell at every interview almost, I'll say, if it was if your pay was based on how much I value you as a human and what you do in a day, this would not be a conversation. But it's math, not magic. And the math has to work because families can only afford to pay so much. And most of them can't afford to pay enough for you to even get paid what you get paid. So
that's why I think something's broken because when the next affordable option is a robot, like, to raise your kids,
that's a disaster.
because mine's not as it's not as important, but it's very important for safety, you know?
Right.
There there's probably good arguments that it could be safer, but for
Yeah.
raising a kid, I don't think that argument will stand.
No, I mean, there's too much that we learn in those first years. The investment in a child's first 5 years in their education during those first 5 years, and that's a broad, like, when you talk about education, people have a picture, and my picture is just different because I start at birth or 6 weeks. Um, but the picture of that is so focused on social, emotional, human interaction. I mean, that is how we learn language, it's how we learn empathy. It's how we learn how we just move about in the world, how our bodies move. Um, I have babies that come in who have, they're the first babies, so they've been around all adults. And you put them in an infant classroom and they see the other infants moving, and maybe they were just kind of starfishing laying on the ground, watching the world go by. And depending on their age, obviously, if they're 6 weeks old, they're still gonna
Yeah.
hang out on the floor for a while. But if they are kind of past that window, that age window, and they would be capable, but they didn't realize what the possibilities were, and they see other babies moving around, they're crawling within weeks. Like they developed that because they just didn't realize, oh, look at what happens.
Yeah, that's so cool.
They see their parents walking around, and of course they will develop those skills regardless. I mean, almost exclusively that happens. But when they see other children doing things, they realize their possibilities. And that happens all the time in childcare and Montessori specifically and others as well. They see what their friends are doing. And I always say it's the proper use of peer pressure. Peer pressure helping a child learn to potty train. We potty train really early because they see their friend doing it and they see the freedom that they don't have to lay down and get their diaper changed now. And they're like, I wanna do that. That looks awesome.
So on average, what age can kids get potty trained?
I mean, in a Montessori classroom, they'll get exposed to that just after, like, at about 1.5, they'll see their friends doing it because their group band is about 1.5 to 2.5.
Mhm.
And so the 2.5-year-olds are potty trained, like they're getting finished up. When they walk in the room or enter that class at 1.5, they're just seeing it happen. When they go to get their diaper changed, they see their friend is not.
Yeah.
And then we just watch for signs that they're interested. And as soon as they're interested, we'll start setting them on the potty. And a day will come when they're successful. And then we'll encourage them to try more often. And
Nice.
yeah. So it's not because of pressure from the
Yeah.
adults in the room. It's because I mean, literally the line I say to every parent is, this age is the proper use of peer pressure. This is where we want peer pressure because they're seeing other kids do things. When they first read a book, they see their other peers reading and they want to be like, think of when you're little and like the third graders were the big kids on the playground. Oh, well, you were homeschooled,
Mhm.
but you had siblings
Yeah,
probably.
yeah.
Um, so they could push the merry-go-round so fast. I mean, that's what we want because that's bringing internal drive that the adult in the room can't make that happen.
Yeah. I mean, that
And
makes complete sense. I'm just
yeah.
thinking of it in my own, like, adolescent life growing up.
Yeah.
Just always wanted to be like, "When can I drive? When can I do this? When can I
Yeah.
stay out later?" All the things, and you're kinda
Yeah. And yeah, that's because you see other people. It's not because someone in the world did it once.
yeah,
You see other peers doing it or people within a certain spectrum of what you consider k your possibilities. and then you want to do that.
Yeah, this makes complete sense to me.
Good.
If people want to check out any of your schools or support you
Sure.
in any of this stuff that you're lobbying for, how do they get involved or get in touch with you if they need to?
Well, like, do you just want my website? I
Yeah,
guess.
wherever. Like I'll link everything in the description. But if you
Okay.
just tell them where to find you or where to go, anyway.
Yeah, you can find me at dinodropin.com,
Mm-hmm.
abcdinoacademy.com, or explore-academy.com. And my phone number's on all of those. It has a call me button. That's
Cool.
me.
All right, do you have any big plans in the future, business wise or anything?
I mean, my general philosophy as a human is to wake up in the morning and do what's in front of me.
Yep.
So I will get there when I get there, and
Yeah.
it'll become apparent what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Thanks.
this is fun talking with you, and I appreciate your time.
You too. Thanks, too.
Cool. Thanks, Jessica. Thanks for listening, folks. You can find the full blog post for every episode, along with key takeaways and links at mountain-mule.com. If you haven't yet, consider following the show. That one small action helps these Montana businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this podcast keep going too. If you know a business that would be a good fit for the show, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out through the website or social. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. See you on the next show.